Machines will eventually replace human translators. Machine translation makes human translation better. The language industry is certainly abuzz with machine translation chatter. What's machine translation, you might ask? By definition, it's the practically automated translation of a text by a computer with no human involvement. Although that sounds quite simple, the technologies behind machine translation are extremely complex, bringing together artificial intelligence, big data, and linguistics. Machine translation is not new. In fact, it began post-World War II in the 1950s and 60s and was used during this time for spying and cracking Russian secret codes. From the 1950s to the 1990s, similar machine translation labs began to open and expand to more languages: Japanese, French, German, and Spanish. Over the years, machine translation changed its definition from a spy lab cracking secret codes to a way to disseminate information to the masses as quickly as possible. Due to technological advancement and globalization, there is significantly more content that needs to be translated than there are trained humans to do so. We've all heard about laughable scenarios where machine translation output falls terribly short. However, there are also plenty of scenarios where machine translation is good enough when humans aren't available. Let's jump ahead a few decades to an era in which machine translation is free and widely available in a plethora of language pairs. Google Translate launched in 2006 and already has over 500 million users worldwide. That comes out to roughly more than 100 billion translated words per day, certainly an impressive amount. But professional translation should never be reduced to quantity alone at the sacrifice of quality. Nevertheless, with this kind of growth, it's no wonder that 61% of translation language industry professionals agree that machine translation is essential to coping with increasing translation demands. As machine translation grew, different approaches to this technology have changed over the years. The first approach was a rule-based approach, based on grammatical rules and syntactic tree structures. However, this often led to problems, with the translated language not feeling natural and a lack of technical support for many languages. A second approach, called the statistical approach, is based upon probability and dependent upon previously translated strings of text. A statistical probability is assigned to each segment, based on what the translator would be most likely to produce based, in turn, on already existing content in the target language. Content generally takes precedence over context, which often causes problems. This particularly holds true for language pairs in which word order patterns are largely divergent. A third approach, and the one that is currently in favor, is a neural approach. This means that machine translation is based on whole sentences, instead of a word-for-word approach. Here, it's translating context instead of content per se by predicting the likelihood of longer sequences. So what does this neural approach mean for machine translation overall as a tool available for use by language industry professionals? Well, it further highlights the love-hate relationship that many have with machine translation. We hate machine translation because we have a fear that human translators potentially run the risk of ultimately being replaced by technology. And we hate that sometimes clients may look for the economical solution instead of seeing the value in human translation. However, we love machine translation because it can help enhance the translator's productivity and consistency. As we continue to see machine translation technology expand, it's important to think about what this technology means for the future, including enhanced productivity, which leads to an expectation to produce more in a shorter period of time. A potential for huge growth in emerging career fields, including post-editing, pre-editing, and machine translation engineering, training to successfully work with machine translation, and a focus on intercultural communication and what still lies beyond machine technology.